Hey everyone, welcome to ImageOut Virtual Film Festival. And I'm Michael Gamilla, the programming director. So glad you could join us. Last weekend, we did a Filmmakers Roundtable with a few feature filmmakers. But today, we have something even more special. We're doing a Filmmakers Roundtable with some of my favorite shorts in this year's festival. So I'd like to introduce our guest for this afternoon. So first is from the short film Thrive. Please welcome Jamie Di Spirito.
Hello.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for joining us. I know you're still celebrating your birthday, so I'm glad you could join us.
I am. I've got some limoncello here.
We also have Sophie Kargman from Query.
Hello.
Hi, Sophie. I'm glad you could join us.
Me as well. Thank you for having me.
And we have another Jamie. Please welcome Jamie Weston from the shorts film Wings.
Hi there. How's it going?
Hi there. Oh my God, you look like you're fully equipped there.
This is my live stream setup for all my work.
And last but not the least, we have the team from S.A.M or S.A.M, co-directors and co-writers Lloyd Eyre-Morgan and Neil Ely. I almost forgot how to pronounce your names. Hey guys.
Hello. Hi.
It's interesting that we have three teams from the UK. I was just gonna say that when I was watching shorts, there were a lot of good short films this year from the UK, and there were a couple of other female filmmakers that I invited, but unfortunately they couldn't join us. But this almost became like an all UK panel. So thanks, Sophie, for being the odd woman out. One of my favorite things as a festival programmer is watching shorts. It's just putting all together the shorts program is one of my favorite things. But it's also it's a lot of work because you have to watch so much more, and you have to keep track of so much more, and trying to put them together to make it a coherent program is a lot more work. But anyway, your films were wonderful, and that's why they were part of the festival. So I was just wondering, because all your films are so different and they all have different messages. You began with a thought. Can you just talk a little bit about how the project came together and what were you trying to accomplish by making this film? So maybe we could start with Jamie Weston.
Sure. The first thing with Wings was really that I sort of had a bit of a broad idea of what I wanted to create, and I felt like it was a story that had never been told before. And I sort of racked my brain for quite a while to sort of think, it has stories like this been told before, and when I sort of felt like there hasn't, to me that's always a good sign to say this is something that should be made. So I got in touch with a colleague of mine who had worked with before, Carla. And I sort of said, what do you think of the script? Would you like to work on this with me? So we sort of collaborated together and started putting our heads together. And then it was almost like a year in pre-production of just sort of going, oh, maybe we should try and grab some cameras, just make something happen. And it wasn't until we sort of put it out there into the world that we're making this, and this is the sort of broad synopsis, when talent started to sort of say, yeah, actually, this sounds like a great idea. Can I read the script? We hadn't really sort of thought that it was going to be a real thing. We just assumed that me and her were going to be sitting in the field in like October covered in mud, and I'll just be filming her on a 5D or something, we just thought we'd just do something. And yeah, people started to come on board, and then I realized I didn't have any money, and then we tried to find some money and no one could help us find any money. So we went to Kickstarter and said, hey guys, look, we've got this really cool idea. Is anyone going to help out? And luckily enough they did, and then we got some funding, and me and Carla put the rest of it together and recording loads of favors, and pretty much sort of happened quite organically, just almost out of necessity. Like some people said, yeah, well, I want to do it, but I've only got a limited amount of time. And so we just went, right, okay, let's just pull in together and see what we can do, really.
Was this your first film?
It's I would say it's the first film that I'm truly happy with.
So are there films that are hiding in your hard drive and hasn't been shown yet?
I mean, the thing is, I've done like a couple of features and stuff like that, and they're like, you know, them sort of straight to DVD sort of things. But a lot of the time, as I'm sure loads of you guys, you work as a filmmaker, you work as a freelancer, right? You get hired onto projects, you do stuff, or you work for production houses. You've got to do these things to earn a wage. And then I make little short films as well as sort of a hobby and just to pass your time. But every now and again, you come up with an idea and you're like, right, this is the one that is worth putting all of my savings into, because this is the one with legs. This is the one that's worth investing and putting into film festivals. Whereas other ones before, I didn't think it was worthwhile investing in putting it out into the market. So this is like the first proper one I've done. But I mean, I've done it's like a huge catalogue of being able to know how to make films before. I feel like I know what I'm doing now.
Good. So what about you, Sophie?
So Query started as a conversation about the Gen Z generation and how they challenge preconceived notions about sexuality, I think, more than any prior generation. And I thought, you know, I've never seen two sort of bro-y type dudes, similar to what Jamie was saying. I've never seen these types of characters sort of portrayed in this way, in the sort of more thoughtful, articulate, intelligent way. You sort of see these prototypes and they're like in a buddy comedy, and they're sort of these broad characters that don't have so much depth. And I was like, how has there never been anything that sort of explores sexuality in this sort of a more nuanced way? And you know, on top of that, I had sort of just come off directing another short, and I was like, well, what story can I tell that, you know, that requires not a massive budget? And I was like, well, it's probably two characters, one location, less than one conversation, less than 10 minutes. And so in a way, the impetus for Query sprung from sort of the restrictions that I had, which actually was kind of liberating and exciting in that way. And I went to one of my frequent sort of collaborators, and we sort of tossed around this idea, and 2 weeks later we were shooting, and then 2 weeks after that we were locked. So from start to finish, it was about a month and a day. From sort of inception to picture lock, it was about a month. So it was a very quick, very sort of organic, seamless process. I feel very lucky because usually things don't happen that way. But yeah, it was great. We had a first draft. He had a first draft in like 20 minutes. I tinkered with it for the next sort of 2 weeks. I had one rehearsal with our leads, and then I sort of tinkered with it a little bit more, sort of to, you know, once I sort of heard it in their mouths, the words in their mouths, I sort of chiseled, but it was more or less, and I think this is such a testament to how great these actors are. Every, like 99% of what you see is written. It's very little of it is actually improv.
Wow. Well, you know, especially it was more of a conversation between the two young guys. Yeah. I thought maybe there's some improv going on, but you know, it came together very well. And what I like about it is, like you said, they're talking about something serious, but it never really got heavy. So there's some lightness to it that I think makes it a little more relatable.
Yeah. I think I'm such a fan of being able to sort of explore different colors. I think the actors, I was very lucky in that, like, when you know great actors, you can sort of tailor the language for them, and knowing, you know, their personalities, knowing how they act, what their mannerisms are. You can sort of build it around that. And then, you know, these guys are so, they're joys. They're this way in real life. They're really lovely, really fun, easy, great. I mean, I feel very lucky to have such a great.
Actually, I'm going to go back to that question about your actors in a little bit, but
Okay.
I'm going to go now to Jamie, who did Thrive. So what's the scoop?
What's the scoop? So sorry, the question was what was the inspiration behind the film?
Yeah, and what were you hoping to accomplish maybe by making this short?
Yeah, so I guess being gay myself, surprise. When Undetectable became a thing in 2016, myself and a lot of my friends, we noticed that more and more people were disclosing, you know, like we're mid-20s, we're hooking up. All of a sudden, after years of casual hooking up, way more people are disclosing to us, and we're like, hang on. And so we've clearly been having sex with people that were undetectable for however long, and not knowing it. And there's this great partner study that has been published. It's a great, you know, public service announcement, but the real life impact of that is that people who are living with HIV are way more comfortable sharing that. And then I thought, well, how tragic is it that the amount of these casual hookups that are happening, they were scared to disclose, and not just missing connections with people that aren't positive, but also other people with HIV that they could maybe navigate it with. And so I just thought, well, that to me is quite heartbreaking that they were missing each other. And so I started speaking to friends about it. They were like, yeah. And I kind of thought, okay, well, I spent like over 10 years like working as an actor. And so threw myself into the situation and was like, how would I be if I did this? And how would I approach it? And let me give this character an arc. And so the intention was just, as the others have said, Sophie said, it was my first film, so a two-hander to make it manageable. Less, I mean, it's still as visual as possible, but I guess it's more character-led in that, you know, there's a good amount of dialogue and it's a single location, you know, but how can I make that as visual as possible? So the flat's supposed to kind of be the interior of his mind, you know, like a visual metaphor. But it was intended to do on a very little budget, and just maybe with two mates in my own flat. And then as I got a producer on board and other people, I guess because I'd worked so much as an actor, the people that I was approaching, they were all quite experienced. And I didn't really say to them, I have no intention of this being no money, no budget sort of vibe. They all started talking about money, and I was like, oh, okay, if they think it's that good, I'm not going to tell them it isn't, so I'll just go with it. And so we ended up doing a crowdfunder, and we raised about, I think, like £12,000 to make the short, and it kind of took on a life of its own, I guess. Yeah.
What I liked about your film is, even though you said that, you know, you're experiencing all these conversations that you're not used to when you're hooking up, it still doesn't happen often. You know, from my experience and from friends' experience, like there's still a stigma, even though undetectable is a thing now. People still don't understand that. You know, to them, you're still HIV positive and someone that, you know, is dangerous or something. So a lot of people that are undetectable are still not very open about talking about it. And I love that your film sort of puts it out there and have people start talking about it.
Yeah, well, I think like one of the things I did want to like, and I hope, I mean, it's not a perfect film, it's flawed, obviously, but I think what we did want to acknowledge is that despite it being a hopeful film, I didn't want it to be like, look, it's all fine now. Like any good film acknowledges like both sides of the argument, so to speak, you know? So like, I think hopefully you agree that, you know, he acknowledges it's still a bit shit and people are still a bit shit about it.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, it can mean everything and nothing, basically, because
yeah. Well, I like that you showed the struggle the personal struggle, the internal struggle of your lead character. And it wasn't just like, yeah, you know what, this is fine, you know. And in the end, you still don't know what it's gonna be like, you know, and if he's still really gonna be comfortable after that. But for now, he's starting to come out of his shell and being a little bit more open about it.
Yeah, the beginning of what we wanted to show was just the beginning of that journey, right? Because it's a short and not a feature. So if we could just show some very small amount of movement, right? Going from not wanting to connect with a person to maybe being open to it. And hopefully, I think we managed that.
Yeah. And this is your first film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go now to the theme of Eyre and Ely, and you're probably like the most experienced of the bunch here. I was just reading up on you guys that you're like BAFTA and Oscar accredited, and you've done feature films, you've done short films, you did the musical theater, a musical play. So it's like, I feel like you've done everything. So what's the deal with this new project?
I think a little bit like Jamie was saying, Jamie who did Wings. Sorry, I didn't catch yours. So I think we've our previous films, many of them are probably films that were our way of learning how to make films on 50p budget. And then I think that maybe the last two short films we've done, we've kind of really
But yeah, I mean, this film's really important to us because we work a lot with people like young adults with learning disabilities doing drama. So we actually put on a show just with a cast just with people with learning disabilities. And when we were doing that show, it was a theatre show, we asked them kind of what they felt wasn't seen on screen. And the one thing that kept coming up was sexuality. They were just kind of saying that they felt like in kind of British arts that there wasn't sexuality being discussed, and especially kind of sexuality in the sense of, you know, someone with a disability with someone who doesn't have a disability. They said that, you know, and it happens all the time in life. I mean, you've worked for MenCap for 15 years, and you know, it is a thing that happens, but it isn't really explored. And so we wanted to explore it with the short. So yeah.
Your film is probably the second to the last short film I booked. I was watching Outfest, you know, because they were. I was watching their short programs, and in one of the programs, I saw your film. It's like, oh crap, I haven't seen this one, and I love it, and I have to have it. So I was like panicking because it doesn't seem like you've done a lot of festivals yet. At least people that I reach out to, it's like, do you have a screener for this? And they're like, we don't have it, you know.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey with this film, because I think that it's been perceived and accepted really well by
North
America, where the UK festival circuit have said that they find it difficult, because I think that disability and people with learning disabilities and neurotypical people in the UK, it's still very kept behind closed doors. So I think that a lot of film festivals in the UK have kind of been a bit like,
we had feedback from one festival that we won't name, but they said that they weren't sure, they didn't know enough about it to know if it was okay to present it in their festival, which we found really interesting, because it was kind of like, you know, that this is obviously a subject matter that hasn't been tackled at all, because people don't even know if it's okay for someone with a disability to have a relationship with someone who doesn't want. And, you know, the character who's got a disability has full capacity. He can make any decision he wants. He can, you know, like everyone. But I just don't think there's a lot of understanding with it, which is kind of what's pushing us now to explore that further in a feature version. So we're writing a feature version of the script at the moment to try and really explore it and kind of show people as well about stuff they don't know about.
Also, it's like, I think we've also said to people, but if it isn't acceptable or it isn't something that's acceptable, then why shouldn't that be explored on film anyway? Do you know what I mean? Just because, you know, something isn't accepted doesn't mean it shouldn't be talked about or discussed. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh my God, this is such an important film to be shown. And I have a youth shorts program that I put together every year. And we have a next generation series that, I call it Next Generation Series, where a lot of the youth-oriented films we offer for free for anyone 25 and under. So we reach out to the GSAs, so high school GSAs, college GSAs, to make sure that these films reach the audience that need to see them. And Sophie's film and your film were part of that youth shorts program. And I thought it was very important for people to see it. And that's why when I saw it, I'm like, I couldn't get a contact information. So I went to Twitter and messaged you guys. And it's like, oh, I finally found an email and sent an email. So you probably thought I was crazy.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but it was great. But anyway, so like I said, all your films are so different and they have different messages. And what I love about short films is that I think it's very challenging to begin with, because in such a small amount of time, you have to establish characters and bring your message forth. So from your experience, aside from funding, of course, what's the most challenging part of making short films? Or did you have any challenges in making this particular short film that we showed at the festival?
I'll answer that.
Yeah.
I think normally, it's hard. I think that of many short filmmakers, including myself, I think the trouble sometimes making shorts is that you bite off more than you can chew in a short. You try to tell, the story feels maybe too big. It could be a feature. You want to say too much and in a very small, sort of compact amount of time. And I think my sort of goal with Query was to tell a smaller story, something that felt like I could really explore in a short amount of time, like a conversation that between two guys. I think that, because I sort of approached it from that perspective, I actually think that proved to be very, helpful. And I think that where I've had trouble in the past with sort of telling a story that feels like it shouldn't maybe be a short, it should be a feature. There's so much that I want to say, or I'm trying to bite off more than I can really chew. With this, I sort of approached it from a very sort of more with a limited, this is this tiny thing is the story that I want to tell, and I really want to tell it well. And because I sort of approached from that perspective, I actually think that it was much more successful. And I think that I could really, the short, I couldn't imagine it going any sort of smoother in terms of, staying under budget and all the sort of things that could go wrong and may have gone wrong with other things that I've shot did not go wrong with this, just because it was so compact and we were really, really, really prepared. My editor, my longtime editor, was about to sort of step on a feature, and she had 2 weeks to edit the film and could only do it nights and weekends. So it was really just on the nights and two weekends. And so because of that, we were extremely prepared. I knew the edit before we shot. I could be even more sort of articulate and communicative with my actors about the shots. I was like, well, this is going to stay on a 2 shot. So, yes, we're going to get a little bit of coverage because my editor will kill me if I don't. But ideally, this is all going to be in a 2 shot. So they were sort of prepared and and in cahoots with me in terms of like what the final product would be.
Does anyone else have something to add?
Difficulties. I guess on a very like practical level, if you're a director in any other industry, right? Like, so a managing director at an investment bank, horrible example, but you spend years kind of, working laterally. So you've done a number of other roles. You know everyone's role just as well as they probably know it. So the point at which you're a director is less stressful because you know everyone else's job so well. I think with like film directing, there's less of an obvious trajectory and people come from such different backgrounds that you're still expected to manage all these different people. And like having come from an acting background where it's way more collaborative, the way I would like to work is I kind of wanted to hold my cards quite close to my chest. And it wasn't that I didn't have ideas on what I wanted the DOP to do or the actors or this or that, but I just thought, well, let me give them the freedom to do what they want. And if it's too far from what I think works, I would jump in and, maneuver a bit. But firstly, for a first-time director, it just looks like you don't know what you're doing. If you do that, they might not trust you. So you kind of have to be like, hang on, here's what I want. I'm cool with it, but I would rather you bring something as well. Like, so I had to do that. Mm-hmm. But also there's sometimes problematic people that you might be working with, and it's how to manage them so that they don't stifle the set, especially if there happens to be a sex scene or, so I'm not going to lie, I did kind of struggle with those things. I think I managed it okay, and it was definitely a baptism of fire for sure.
That's really interesting to hear. I always find as well, one of the problems is if you're coming in quite unexperienced, sometimes, especially an older crew, they smell blood in the water and they try to like take over.
Well, exactly.
So it sounds like you've really sort of made sure you've held yourself together. That's something I really did do when I was younger.
It's also but doing it in a diplomatic way as well. So like that happened, actually, what you just said, it happened with a couple of older crew members and they did it in front of everyone. And so I had to kind of address it in front of everyone so that they knew, hang on, he does know what he wants. And I had to kind of make it clear, look, you might have so many years working, doing whatever you're doing, no names, but I've got more experience on set than you because I've been an actor for years and I've just been on way more shoots than you. So first directing thing, but here's my experience on set. So chill out, I know what I want. And it didn't happen again. But it was eggy to keep my calm and make it not offend him, so that he was still happy to work for me. And yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy.
Well, you have to let them know who's boss, right? On the set.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I didn't even really want to call rank because it's gross. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, this is all my friend's money and it's my film, and I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to be like, can you not just be nice and make this fun?
It's good to talk about it though, because I feel like not many people talk about like toxicity on like film sets and stuff. I think like it happens on a lot of film sets, and people are so scared to talk about it. So it's really
hard. It's the hardest bit I found. Everything else is lovely. It's that.
I've experienced it a lot as well. It's so it's hard. Yeah.
Getting the team right. So then when you're doing a feature, it's 6 weeks of hard graft, but you at least like the people you're working,
Well,
yeah, I think finding a good crew. I think once you find a good crew, then that's why people stick with who they know, isn't it? Because once you sort of know you can get on with someone, then you don't really want to have to. I mean, luckily enough, the people who are on Wings are super lucky. Like my DP Bear, we've worked together since 2016, and most of the crew I've worked with on previous projects, and some of them have been nightmares, which is nothing. I've just been a crew member on it as well, and then you meet them and you're like, God, this film's a nightmare. Don't worry, let's make a film together and we'll make sure we don't do any of this rubbish.
I meant to ask Lloyd and Neil, what your title? Why is there no period after M? Like S.
I think it's just because we're like really like dyslexic. We just didn't even pick up that was a thing. So we were like, it's just S.A.M. We just didn't like. And then afterwards on Twitter, some people have been like, that makes no sense, and we've been like, oh, it's out now. Like
the poster's done now, so we're not changing it.
It is what it is.
I prefer it. It's symmetrical.
I know it looks good, but whenever I type it, or it's like, or someone's trying to correct it, like when we have the description, and I saw someone put a period, I say, no, there's no period, and I have to double check that because I'm like, there's no period, right?
We're really, really dyslexic.
Like, if you read one of our scripts, you'd be like, honestly, like on set, people are like, that's not my character name. I'm like, it is. It's fine. It's just like dyslexic. Like.
Same here. My co-writer Carla, I sort of did the first draft, had most of the stuff in my head. She wrote loads of stuff, and to be honest, it's like I didn't really read any of the redrafts until the final shooting script because I don't know what any of it's saying. I just see the shapes of the words, and I more or less guess what's going on.
I feel like all our proofreaders always end up being dyslexic as well, and then we're like, oh well.
Yeah, we do work around quite a lot of dyslexic people, don't we? Actually, like. But we kind of make it work. We're all just a bit like, let's just crack on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, just say what you want.
I was also going to say that I think for all your films, I believe, well, for many films, casting is very important. And you guys had the perfect people in the roles that you have. But also I'm also amazed how much, usually when you work with filmmakers that they're doing shorts, most of the cast, they're unknowns, but you guys had some recognizable names in your films, even if they're maybe doing cameos. And Thrive has Ben Aldridge from Fleabag. I remember it from Fleabag. It's like, oh, that's the hot guy from Fleabag. And then Sophie, you have these young stars are, I see Graham on late TV shows from his previous drama series. I think it was like a procedural crime drama. And then you have Armie Hammer making a 5-second, cameo. And then Miriam is it Margolyes, or how do you pronounce it? Margolyes. She's in your film. And then I believe George is a well-known personality in the UK because he's a ManCap ambassador. So can you just talk about a little bit on how you went about your casting and being able to land some of these people?
Yeah. Wait, listen, Ben Aldridge.
It's in Thrive. Ben Aldridge was in Thrive.
Ben's like one of my closest friends. That's so strange.
Oh.
I literally was just emailing with him yesterday. It's wild.
Oh, sweet.
That's not have to know.
Small world.
Very small world. For me, when I heard Ben, I was like, because I didn't get to see. That's the one sad part about being not in person at because you just normally you get to see your fellow filmmakers film, and and it's so sad because that's part of the it's one of the best parts of film festival. So I was like, because I didn't know that Ben was. That's cool. But to answer your question about actors, the question was like how or
how? I mean, just I'm sure there's a story behind it. Like,
yeah,
did you write that part so Armie can be and drop by and just because he was just running. I mean, they don't have to be running, but.
So that's actually that there is a story behind that. So I had sort of planned out that that after lunch, we're breaking for lunch, but we were doing the scene where the two boys are walking down the street, and the way I had envisioned it is sort of reminiscent of a scene from Terrence Malick's Badlands, when I don't know if you've seen that, but the Kit and Holly, the two lead characters, are sort of walking down the street, and in the background is just a guy. He's sort of holding groceries, and he like walks just sort of behind them in frame, and it just sort of gives the scene texture. And I just liked it that there was sort of a world outside these two lead characters. There was a world sort of outside them, that world going on, and I thought, well, you know, in sort of my vision, that was sort of, I was going to have like you know, I had a couple friends who were acting as PAs. I was going to have like someone, you know, be jogging in the background, and two of my producers whose house we were shooting at, Nikki and Ashton, were leaving for the day because they were like, oh, we'll get out of your hair. And they were, Army had just come back from London. He was shooting a movie there. And they were with him. He's a good friend of all of ours. And they were with him. And Nikki, one of my producers, was like, he calls me when we broke for lunch, and he was like, wouldn't it be funny if that person in the background who you're planning to, you know, to use a PA for, wouldn't it be funny if that was Army? And I was like, that would be hilarious, but like we wouldn't be able to see him. Like I was like, well, maybe if we make it like, you know, if he sort of jogs over and sort of they, you know, says like I wrote like, oh, what if they have like a small interaction and like, hey Jim, and they're and like, oh hey boy, so and then after lunch I thought it was really just so silly, but also really funny. And 45 minutes later, they came over and you know, Army like quickly texted me like 3 tracksuits that he had, and he's like, "What about these?" And I was like, "This one." And we did 5 takes, and that's it. So it was a very sort of impromptu moment, but it worked out really well.
I had to rewind because was that really Army Hammer like appearing in the background? So, but anyway, so did you audition the 2 boys in the lead?
The 2 boys I've known, Justice Smith is actually, I saw him in a play off Broadway about a year ago. I guess maybe now a year and a half ago at this point, and I just thought, like, I was like, who is this guy? He's so brilliant. And then I realized, I was like, oh, he's the guy from Pokemon. And oddly enough, he was in this play that I was seeing because my friend was in it, and I got to sort of know him. And I ended up writing it for Justice and for Graham, because when you have friends who are great actors, you're like, I just want to write things for you. So,
of course, they work well together, and you know that's the best part of the film is their chemistry on screen. Yeah. So, Jamie, how did you have Ben in your film? Jamie Thrive.
Yeah. So I had obviously I used to be an actor, so Ben and I had like loads of mutual friends anyway. I don't think we knew each other before. But so the casting director I'd worked with before anyway, he'd cast me and stuff, and so he made a few suggestions, and Ben was one of them. So Ben, as well as a number of other guys, came in and read for the part. And actually, it wasn't really that. I get that, you know, like the whole he was in Fleabag and he's well known. That wasn't really the vibe. It was more just that obviously the person is right for the role.
Yeah.
And there was also I street cast the other character, and the whole dynamic was obviously, as you know, like one character is a bit more experienced of, you know, living with HIV than the other is, and I just thought that might be a nice dynamic if I've got somebody that's never acted before and then somebody who's quite experienced. And so there were a few actors that we'd spoken to, and it was quite important to gauge, you know, interest from the really experienced actors, because as well known as Ben is, there was some that were kind of more well known that we were speaking to, but not everyone was up for the whole working with. And I don't even like the term non-actor. There's just people who haven't acted before, right? But they were calling it a non-actor. Just were they comfortable doing a sex scene in a whole, you know, film with somebody who hadn't acted before? And some were really up for it, others weren't. So that obviously made the shortlist much easier. Ben fell into the former. And then it was just about who was right for it, who was going to be up for the process. Because also short films about finding your feet as a filmmaker, right? What you want to say, the way you want to work. And if other people aren't up for working with it, then well, thank you, but I'll move on. But Ben was just really open to everything that we wanting, the way we were wanting to work, as well as obviously being a good actor and being right for it. So yeah, in short, the casting director approached him and he was up for it. I was really upfront about how we'd be working and everything else. So like, for those of you who don't know, it's about a hookup and they don't really know each other beforehand. So I wanted to rehearse them both, but separately. And I didn't really want them to meet until they literally meet in the film. And they were both really up for it, and just indulged me quite a bit. We did quite a bit of improv. And so, yeah, I think it was about finding people that were just really up for that, you know, because I think especially what's hard, which was probably harder for Ben, and we've never really had this chat, but what was probably quite hard for him was being so experienced. Obviously the ego does get a bit involved, doesn't it? And you're used to rocking up to a set with loads of money and bish bash bosh, get the shots done and everything else. And this wasn't that, you know. It was like, okay, well, we can change the shots, we can move around. It's all about the performance, and let's keep it on its feet, and we can change this and change that. And so for some people it was a massive no, but for some they're like, yeah, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what maybe drew Ben to it.
Yeah. Well, whatever you did, it works because you can really feel the tension between them. You know, the experience and non-experience and all that. But they also work well together. So good for you.
Yeah.
What about you, Jamie Weston?
Yes. There was kind of
was that a favor?
No, I mean, no. It's weird, right? Because there's two sides. One, when from a producer's point of view, I kind of know that you want to, if you really want to stand out after making lots of films, if you get talent involved, it does help you stand out a bit from the crowd and puts you in front of somewhere. So I did on purpose, you know, contact Bobby Lockwood, who I did actually know because him and a lot of his friends, all the Nickelodeon lots who did a lot of like, you know, Wolf Blood and a lot of British sort of, you know, Nickelodeon shows, stuff like that. They all lived together and I sort of worked with them on previous projects. So I sort of was like, yo, I want to be in it. We got Rosie Day was really interested in the project, so we met up with her and she decided to come on board. So for them to, first of all, before we got Miriam involved, it was like, right, we need some talent on board in order to push the project. That's like a key thing that we want to do in order to get it out there. But it was kind of like, we'd sort of like, yes, look, we've got these two people on board, they're beating stuff, that's really excellent. That's really going to help us. And then as I was walking out down the street with the sort of script in hand, having gone to these fantastic meetings and really pleased we got this like awesome cast on board, Miriam just walked past us and went into a cafe. And I was just like, oh, look, Carla, there's your one of your favourite actresses there, Miriam. Look. And she was like, oh, yeah, cool. And she's like, wait, what? And we were telling you, like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Like, having worked on a lot of projects, you don't really want to approach too many stars because you know, like, you know, look, when they're your friends, you know that they want the anonymity and they don't want to be, you know, sort of harassed and stuff like that. So I sort of thought I maybe didn't want to do that, but she was literally everything that was in the script. And if she said this was a good project, or if she read it and just said, you know, this is a great thing, you carry on, good on you, that's a nice script, then I would have felt confident that this wasn't going to be like a bad thing to put out there. So I said to Carla, you know, I don't want to go in there as a guy and just be like, yo, look at my script. You go in there and have a chat with her. And she went in there and had a chat. And yeah, Miriam invited, she was lovely, invited her for a coffee. They sat down, had a chat, and she read through the script. She goes, this is a fantastic idea, love it. Who do you want me to play? And Carla was like, what? Can you play Audrey? And Carla come out and just went, yeah, Miriam wants to jump on board, and here's her number and her email, and we'll get back in touch with her. And that was literally it. And at that point, I went from knowing that I was going to make a film for a little bit of a budget to suddenly realizing that I need to make a proper film with a proper budget. Yeah,
it worked well.
Yeah, and then luckily enough, we still needed the other person to play Rosie at an old age, and really luckily, we had a few people that had sort of contacted us. I mean, once you get Miriam on board, it's pretty straightforward, then, isn't it? Everyone wanted to then be the other person across her, but Carla does a lot of conservation work, so she does. We did a previous film which was about like protecting the rhinos in Africa and stopping all the poaching, stuff like that. And Virginia McKenna runs the Born Free Foundation, and her son Will is friends with Carla. And Carla said, "Oh, can you read the script, see what you think?" And Will said, "This is great. I think my mum would really like this. Do you want me to shove it over to her?" And then we got legend actress Virginia McKenna said, "I'd love to jump on board." And I was like, "What? Yes." And just had a bit of a freak out, and then had to get my shit together.
But sometimes you get lucky. So Lloyd and Neil, did you work with MenCap for your film? Was that a collaboration?
No, so I'm a support worker. So I've worked with MenCap and people with learning disabilities for 18 years. So I was working with MenCap, and I invited Lloyd to come and work on a project that I was developing for stage, and that's kind of where the idea come from. And then once we'd written the script, we sent it to MenCap's head office PR department, and they read lots of material for EastEnders, for films, and then they kind of will come back and give advice as to whether or not they feel that it's something that they would approve of. And they came back and said, "Yeah, we really like it, and we'll give you the stamp of approval." So we didn't really. It was kind of, we wrote the script, didn't we?
Yeah,
and then the idea was born from workshops on a different project, and then we street cast George Webster, and we met him, funny enough, for the first time at a service station on a motorway. I think when I texted his dad and was like, "Can I meet you on the M62 at 9 o'clock at night?" He was a bit like, "What?" Most people, and it was street cast. Yeah, so we kind of wanted to. We filmed. We had absolutely no budget, and we went back to film in the kind of council state park that I grew up in. So I definitely wanted to make sure that the kids that are from a very lower working class background, wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to come and be involved in seeing how a film kind of gets made, really. So
we had a whole day, didn't we, where we came down and got involved.
Yeah. So it's cool. Enjoyed it, didn't we?
Wow. I wouldn't even know that they were all just, non-actors. Sorry, Jamie. I'm just kidding.
Been in quite a bit of stuff in the UK.
He's been on TV. Yeah. But the majority. There's three people that have actors that have kind of done TV roles, isn't there?
Yeah.
But the majority of people were street cast. All of the supporting artists were just people from the park.
Some of them were just in the park, and then we just said, "Can we film you?"
Put a camera in the face and was like,
"Wow."
But yeah, it was cool.
And then you probably just had them sign a form, giving you permission to use their image. Before I forget, there's a reason why you four films are in this conversation. It's because we are also announcing our audience and jury award winners for the festival for the short films. So our audience voted, and the winner is Wings by Jamie Weston. Congratulations. And Sophie, actually, Query is the runner-up to Wings. And I have to say, S.A.M is in the top 4, I think, or top 3. So people really love your film too. There's another short film. It's 2 minutes, and it's a dino animation about a trans person coming out, and people loved it too. So it was you guys were the top 4. But Jamie, Thrive is the jury award winner for short.
Hey, thank you.
And Sam is actually the honorable mention from the jury. So, wow.
Well done.
I just want to make sure I get it out there before I forget and the conversation. So I'll be in touch with you guys afterwards about the win. Also, I just also want to bring up that obviously short films have a different life than a feature film. Features get released and they get DVDs and all that. That's not always necessarily true for short films. You might make one and then you might do the festivals, and maybe a distributor might be interested in putting together a DVD collection of some shorts, and if you're lucky, you might get picked for that. So I guess I'm thinking that one of the most important thing for short films and for the shorts filmmakers is to be part of a film festival or have a film festival live. And I know, Sophie, you were at the Tribeca, right? You were chosen at Tribeca, and you guys were at Iris and some other festivals. And I know Jamie has won other audience awards, I believe. Your film is very Wings is very popular. And I just realized that looking at the Iris Prize Festival, because ImageOut is one of the international partners, that they now publish who nominated the film. Before, they didn't used to do that. It's like, well, who got the credit for nominating this film? And I saw that, they announced that Thrive was nominated by ImageOut Rochester. So we did nominate Thrive. The funny thing about Thrive is you were the last film that I was trying to get for 2019, and then you told me no. I'm like, what?
Like producer.
But I know the story. You were trying to get into another festival that might require a New York premiere. But I didn't hold it against you. You were actually the first film that submitted for 2020, so that was interesting. And I said, well, at least he's not really truly ignoring me. As it happened, you were our nominee for Iris Prize. Anyway, what I was trying to get to is, what are your thoughts about participation in film festival? Is that important to you guys for your short films?
Sorry, I'll just answer, just because I do have thoughts on that. As someone who has only made one short film, it was a baptism of fire. So my producer knew quite a bit, but I didn't. And as you know, I didn't know the whole, a lot of festivals want the whole premiere status and all of those things. So we kind of perhaps didn't have the best festival strategy, so to put it. And I guess you touch on a really important point where, if a feature is to qualify for the Oscars, for example, it needs to have been distributed theatrically for however long, and the short equivalent is needing to win a major award at a festival. So yes, the festival is like the most important bit. But what's been super interesting, just having my producer who's quite experienced, but then myself who isn't, is he's just said the amount of places that are now reaching out and want to do shorts distribution, even online, so not even in collections, but now I think it's not Curzon, it's like a kind of classic indie cinema type distributor that mainly does features. But what they're doing is they're distributing a short before a feature, so they're pairing up shorts with features. And I can't remember who it was, so I wish I could tell you guys so you could reach out to them. But what's super fascinating, especially with lockdown, is seeing we've had quite a few offers of distribution, but also during lockdown, there's been a number of offers that are kind of changing the landscape of what it is, So yeah, I don't know if that was very coherent, but sorry, I went for it.
Well, the thing about especially streaming platforms, they're looking for materials, and with the lockdown, they have to be a little more creative to have more materials to show. So I think that's, I had one short film pull out of my film festival because they got picked up by Netflix. I'm like, really? So that was interesting, but good. I mean, it's a good development for everyone if you guys could get picked up and get the the money that you all deserve. That would be great, and the exposure that you all deserve. That would be great. So
yeah.
Well, that's why we try to do these awards, because we know that it helps some of the filmmakers in pitching their work. Maybe not just for this film necessarily, but for pitching their next work. So.
Yeah.
I think for me it was definitely a project. So like I've been sort of making films since 2014, but this is the first one that I've actually bothered putting into film festivals, and that's because it's the first one that I've sort of felt that was like worthy of sort of entering into film festivals. So it's really, it come to a point in my career where I was like, if I want to, I've been penciled for a few that are like $500,000 sort of budget features, but they're not kind of happening. They're not, they're not coming through with the budgets. And I'm like, I need to prove to people that I can do this sort of stuff and I'm the real deal. So I need to make something that's worthy of going into a festival. So like making something that's good and then putting it into a festival and then getting accepted into festivals like this sort of awesome festival is a real testament to sort of, to prove to people, investors, producers, the general public who essentially are going to buy your work, in there, because we're making stuff for other people to gobble up and pay for, hopefully one day, or right at the moment. Getting into festivals is like super important, because it's literally your CV, isn't it? It's literally your stamp of approval to say you can do your job and you're worth something. So yeah, it's great.
I think I've spoken enough.
Carry on.
No, I was just going to say, if anyone's familiar with those, the masterclass sessions. So YouTube their algorithm obviously has me down, and they're pitching me masterclass every time I'm on there. But one of them is Joyce Carol Oates, I think, talking to novelists about how important it is for them to write short stories, just sustain themselves, get a bit of confidence, have the satisfaction of having completed something from beginning to end and putting it out there. And I think most filmmakers, no one wanted to become a filmmaker because they saw short films their whole life. We've all watched feature films, and that's what's made us interested. But it's such an important point that actually it's just good to, because it can feel really unproductive, and it's such a long game that you might be working on a feature for however long, and it's like, I just need to get it out there. I'm stuck in my living room writing every day. So there's something lovely about just having something out there to show people, look, I'm doing a feature and it's kind of maybe similar vibes and themes and whatever else. But look, here's a sample of it. I'm not just making it up. And yeah.
Were you going to say something, Neil? No. Or Lloyd?
I was just going to add on to the festival circuit, saying how important it is. I mean, I like it because as well, we've made so many friends over the years going to film festivals that we're still friends with now, that we've talked about collaborating with, and it just is built up this friends around the world, which is one of the best parts of film festivals for us, and why we entering them and going to them, as well as obviously work, being seen and seeing other people's work. But just the connections you can make been really important for us.
And I do travel to film festivals as well, to network and to watch films. And I see a lot of filmmakers, especially short filmmakers, meeting and, like you said, hitting it off to the point that they want to collaborate and also share ideas and tips or whatever, or people to ask money from and all that stuff. And It's been lovely. I didn't realize that we're getting close to an hour. I don't want to keep Jamie because I know he's still gonna party. He's still celebrating this is his weekend, his birthday weekend. But just quickly before we wrap up, I just want to ask you guys. So what's next on your plate? Are you working on a new project? Is your short this particular one? Is there a plan to make it a feature? So just those last words, I guess. You want to start, Sophie?
Sure. I am actually in pre-production for my first feature film. And oddly enough, we're actually shooting in the UK.
Wow.
So
you have three teams here from the UK.
So that's also part of the reason why I'm talking so much to Ben. So I'm like, I need your, he's giving me a lot of great, actor suggestions, but yeah, so we shoot February 1st. So we're in pre-production right now. So it's very full on. I'm literally just about to get off this and get back to shot listing, but it's exciting. It's a very busy time.
Nice. Whereabouts in the UK are you shooting?
I actually don't. This is all happening because COVID insurance doesn't really exist yet in America. It exists for studios, like Amazon, Netflix, all those like Warner Brothers because they're self-insured, and then it exists for like productions that maybe we're shooting pre-COVID, and then their insurance, like sort of that gap insurance, is sort of carried over, but not.
Perfect. It sounds like she's playing an instrument.
What?
You were cut off.
Where did you lose me? So this is all sort of happening at like, real time, rapid pace. I don't think we're gonna go like in London proper. I think we're gonna be a little bit outside, maybe like Surrey. Actually, I don't. This is still very, very new, but yeah. So it's Kiersey Clemens is starring in it. She was in this movie called, I don't know if you know her. She's an amazing.
I didn't hear.
Say that again.
Sorry, I didn't hear who you said.
Kiersey Clemens. She was in a bunch of stuff, but she was in Antebellum, which just came out, and
brilliant.
Dope, which went to Sundance a couple of years ago, and Hearts Beat Loud, and she's an amazing young actress. And so, yeah, the announcements I think going to come out, should be out next week.
Cool.
Well, you're doing it here now.
It's done.
You're doing it here now. The announcement. Well, it sounds like it's a big to do. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So, what about who's next?
Go on, Jamie. I'm just like anxious to get it out of the way. When you're in those circle activity groups. I'm developing a couple of things. One is a feature version of Thrive, and a TV show, which we're also developing a short for, which kind of proves you can handle the types of characters and themes again. And it's all in development, nothing production as of yet.
Manchester boys.
What are we doing? I'm into it. So that's been we've got a producer on board who's who produced the short, who's kind of taken the beach concepts out to people, and we're just working on the script for that, hoping to shoot in spring next year. But again, it's kind of just depending on what happens,
we've been working on a TV series musical as well, and we've been developing songs for that. So we've been in the recording studio pretending to be pop stars for like the past couple. None of us can sing either, so it's quite interesting.
Can you sing one for us now?
No.
Live from Manchester.
Years with like a thing on for the past. It's been really fun, hasn't it?
Yeah, so we've been doing that.
So yeah,
I hope we're filming a short next month, but it all depends on
COVID. Yeah,
I don't know.
Manchester's just like absolutely, completely, and utterly shut down now. So not that most people in Manchester are actually taking any notice of it. But I think if we all turn up with loads of cameras, a few people might have a few things to say about that. So just try and see how we can get around it.
For me, I don't know. I think a lot of people are suggesting Wings as a sort of maybe a 6-part TV series or something or other. I think that would be a good idea. In my head, I just wanted to make it short, so just something that didn't have dialogue in for a change. But other than that, I've turned to doing audio stuff like radio shows and making an album, and I've been making some little short film things just to pass my time. But
when you say album, you mean are you singing? Singer?
I am actually, yeah.
Wow. Yes, of course.
But I'm basically just doing No, I'm doing temp track stuff. So I'm writing, I'm singing, but we're employing singers because I wanted to do like a retro style synthwave album as a sort of
Hey, maybe you can do soundtracks too.
Yeah, like John Carpenter, just sing the theme tune, write the theme tune.
So here's my question, because I've spoken to a couple of filmmakers in Europe, and they said filming is still going on in their countries, like in Sweden, and I mean there's obviously protocols because of the pandemic, but there's still filming and all that. Is that true for you guys in the UK? And I don't know about you, Sophie, in LA. Is it happening that productions are going on now?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Yeah, no. From what I know, like Sophie said, the big players like Amazon and Netflix, they self-insure. They're not really. I mean, they are production companies, but they're fintech. They've got ridiculous money, so they just self-insure. They'll cover themselves, whatever. The more traditional companies, I don't know that they are filming. They can't get insurance unless they were already filming and they've got coverage. But even then, I think the insurance didn't cover unforeseen circumstances. The things I know that are filming, everyone's signing a waiver. So they're following protocol, but they're also signing a waiver so that, EastEnders, for example, isn't liable for you getting COVID. But then they're still trying to, mitigate people getting it. They're not being reckless about it. I know commercials just didn't ever stop. That's just horrible capitalism. Like every single one of my actor friends had to do a self-tape for a commercial like twice a week. And apparently none of them were insured commercials. But yeah, that's all I know.
I know the Witcher starts next month again, just with social distancing. I've been shooting a few things just with like no more than 6 people, social distances, masked up, and everything else. And there's also like Screen Skills. I think everyone's doing this sort of COVID certificate from Screen Skills, and it's kind of BF5 suggested if you do that, you're pretty much fine, because you're at work, right? So it's like work.
Up and like Instagram.
Yeah. I've got the Screen Skills certificate. Ready to go.
As from what I know, there is insurance because it's my movie's set in like Ohio. It's set in Middle America, and we're moving to the UK because there is insurance. It was initially until December 31st, but as of last Friday, it was extended to the end of February. So yeah, as of right now, there is insurance for COVID in the UK. So
Yay.
That's why we've all got it.
What?
That's why we've all got it.
Not in Surrey. Nobody's got it in Surrey.
Everyone's got it.
Everyone in Manchester's got it.
You can take it to Surrey though, Sophie.
Don't scare her. So anyway, you guys have been amazing. Thank you for being part of this conversation. It just flew by quickly. And again, congratulations for winning awards at ImageOut. And really thank you for being part of ImageOut. And I wish you more success for all your all the films and your next projects. And if you need to get in touch, the initial email I sent out to you guys, you all have the emails there. So
thank you.
at least this is, at least hopefully you can network through that. Yeah.
But meet everybody as well. I can't wait to watch all your films, and have a good birthday, Jamie.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, well, I hope Sam will get more festival exposure, because it is an important film. Like all of your films are good, but I think Sam is still starting out in a way compared to the other ones. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye to the audience now, and if you guys to hang out for a little bit, when we go off the broadcast, then we can say proper goodbyes.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.